Well, welcome to the session this morning. This is the last of 4. We have the maestro, the one and only Warwick Nightingale from the fantastic The Rock in southern New South Wales, presenting to us today on the LibertyLink use pattern and our new seed varieties in canola. So, Warwick Nightingale, the floor is yours.
Oh, thanks, Ed, and thanks everyone for joining us this morning. So, yes, this morning, the BASF canola update. So the agenda this morning, as Ed mentioned, we're going to touch on Liberty herbicide. Might be a little bit of duplication for a few people. We're rolling out some sessions specifically on Liberty, but I'm just going to touch on it today, mainly getting the best out of Liberty and just go through some recent experiences we've had, particularly this season, rolling it out into the hands of the agronomists and some grower demos as well. So we've got a better look at it this season across the board, and just detailing the stewardship summary, and also touch on podguard, which has renewed interest this season with the high prices of canola, and it's a trait that we're getting in more and more of our varieties, in addition with the performance that we've been lacking in the past. And then just finish off on some general business. So Liberty herbicide in a nutshell, it's a 200 gram glufosinate ammonia formulation, an SL formulation in a pretty unique mode of action, Group N or Group 10. So utilised in horticulture for many years, and it's quite big in North America. Obviously the Liberty crop systems in North America are widely used, and the Invigor canola varieties are a big part of the canola. I think it makes up around 50% in North America with the Invigor hybrids and the SeedLink Liberty systems. So the formulation is quite a user-friendly formulation in all the little mixes we've been doing in trials and some grower demos. We've been doing various mixes, and we haven't encountered any issues to date. That work will be ongoing. The first year, so next year, first commercial year, we'll just have it in 20 litre pack sizes, and we hope to roll into larger volume pack sizes after that. There's only one registration currently on the label, which is LibertyLink canola, and there's a list of 28 weeds, including, importantly, annual ryegrass. So probably we see this as our key market for this chemistry, assisting in the control of glyphosate and clethodim-resistant ryegrass. Withholding period, it's got a growth stage limit on it to early bolting. So for harvest, we just need to stick to that timing for a withholding period. 10 weeks for grazing, but there's a not allowed to graze dairy stock. So do not graze or cut for stock food for dairy stock. And it's got a plant back on the label of 14 days to cereals, pulses, and canola. So this is our label. It was approved in back in last year, actually, early last year, I believe, or 2020, and that's available to download off our website now and have a look at it. Importantly, when the Liberty herbicide work was first being conducted around about 20 years ago over here, they realised that the single application was not working in our environment. So there's been an important progression with this registration that the application pattern is a sequential application pattern. And you'll see there in bold on the right-hand side, it's essential to complete both applications. And also looking at ryegrass. So ryegrass has the top rates registered at an early growth stage, so 2 to 4 leaf started tillering with that split application. Crop stage, 2 leaf to early bolting, and comments around utilising other post-emergent chemistry and your pre-emergence when controlling your ryegrass. Particularly, we're bringing to market a dual-tolerant hybrid, and that will be, so we're selling that seed currently, producing it in the paddock. That's the first Liberty hybrid that'll be atrazine and Liberty tolerant. So important to utilise the available chemical options. And Liberty is quite weak on radish, one of the key weeds in many systems. So obviously needing that atrazine to be effective. So we've done quite a bit of work on getting the best out of Liberty. So Liberty, it's not an easy herbicide to use. There's a number of factors to consider. We started out with some of the Bayer work initially, and we're just looking at 4 components. And the more we looked into it, there's a lot more to it. So you do need a good reason to use Liberty, because it's not easy to use, get all the components right. And that good reason is to assist with clethodim and glyphosate resistant ryegrass populations. So just to touch on a few of these, it is basically a contact herbicide. So coverage is paramount. The label says 80 to 100 litres, but from what we've seen, you need to use at least 100. And looking at some of the American information in their broadacre crops, they actually suggest rates of up to 140 and even 180, which would scare a lot of people off. But I have come across situations where people are even getting up to that 150 with clethodim to try and get better control on ryegrass. So that's a key aspect: coverage, water volume. It's a contact. So if you think of gramoxone on big weeds, you can knock the top off them and then they'll just regrow from the established root system. So similar to this, we have to target smaller weeds. Larger weeds will be ineffectively controlled. So 2 Liberty sprays in 2 weeks. I mentioned that sequential spray registration use pattern. That's a 7 to 14 day window. 7 days often works better than 14, just to give you a bit of leeway around conditions and delays in application. And these hybrids grow really quick, as many of the hybrids do these days, so good early vigour. And in those situations, we're often encountering pretty heavy populations of ryegrass. So we've actually found very good benefit when you're coming back on the second pass, come back in the opposite direction, and that can overcome some of the shading effects you get from those heavy populations and crop shading. And the Americans also advocate that. Planting early in the sowing window. So I think the industry is doing that anyway to maximise their yield potential. But this is obviously helping with early vigour. And it's also, early vigour. And it's also allowing us to complete that herbicide application program, the 2 sprays, usually in a better time of the year, better conditions for that chemistry, a little bit warmer and actively growing environment. The conditions are important, and we make comment of this on the label. So we say spray when calm, but not still. Obviously, we don't want inversion conditions, but spray when calm and sunny in temperatures over 10 degrees. Now, the herbicide has a 6-hour rain fast. And we've got to look at the partner products, as I mentioned earlier before. So we've done a lot of work with different mixes, and we're probably, from what I've seen, putting Liberty out by itself, even in 2 sprays, probably not. I don't think it's going to give us the results we're looking for. So from what I've seen, we need to utilise our pre-chemicals where we can, and also, even if there are levels of resistance, clethodim resistance, we're seeing improvements by doing those mixes on the first application, which I'll touch on further. So good crop competition, I've sort of touched on, and the water volume. I'm just going to touch on some experiences that we've had recently. I've been looking at this chemistry for the last 3 years, and so the first year was pretty limited back in 2019. Last year we had a good rollout in our tech sites across a number of sites, looking at various mixes in our LT and LR hybrids. We also got some work done with Plant Science Consulting, Peter Botsalis. Just want to show you this population that they tested. It was classified as weak dim, intermediate gly resistance, and the top row there was treated at 2-leaf and the bottom row was treated at 4-leaf. So if we make those comparisons, the Roundup Ready plant shield treatments and the select treatment next to it, clethodim, giving us pretty poor results there. And then when we look at the right-hand side, we start to lay that Liberty herbicide system on top of that existing chemistry. And you can see we're seeing a much better level of control with those Cletho Liberty, glyphosate Liberty, and also that atrazine combination mix, which is suitable for the LT hybrid. So those results were encouraging and sort of directed some of our treatments that we wanted to look at this year. Well, some of the key findings: all treatments where Liberty was used twice in quick succession, which in this case was 7 days, provided 70 to 100% control of both susceptible and multiple resistant ryegrass, provided plants were treated pre-tillering. Glyphosate plus Liberty followed by Liberty was the most effective mixture of multi-tillers resistant ryegrass. So this is not a mixture we can use on the LT hybrid, of course. Glyphosate would kill that, but we have a LR hybrid, so TrueFlex Liberty hybrid coming through, which we would be looking at those type of mixes. Liberty is a standalone application, so one application was ineffective regardless of biotype or growth stage. So this season, we managed to get out a number of sites, and it was great to actually get it in the hands of some potential users. So we ended up with 9 tech sites from east to west, 15 customer Liberty trials, and we managed to get down 7 grower demos. Just to go through a few of those experiences from the paddock. Dave Armitage and Andrew Lockley at Temora in southern New South Wales. So they had both the LT and the LR plots, and they used those combination mixes, so the atrazine Cletho Liberty and the plant shield Liberty on the LR, the atrazine on the LT. Their results: good crop safety and compatibility from the mixes, lack of weed pressure to assess efficacy. We had a similar issue at our site closer to Wagga. We just didn't get the weeds with the dry start that we had after sowing. Will you use it and how? Useful new mode of action option for clethodim and glyphosate resistant ryegrass. We had a grower demo just down the road from me at Alma Park, again in southern New South Wales. This was Thomas Parker at Ag and Vet. It was sown into moisture early April, about a 6-week dry stretch. So we had some staggered germ, and when we got around to spraying it, there was some larger ryegrass. It had rustler IBS, which due to the marginal moisture conditions didn't do a great deal. And I did ask Thomas for a good ryegrass paddock, and he certainly found me one. There was just huge seed bank, multiple germinations. But and he's also had a TrueFlex demo beside this, but he was really good to get the grower to do all the relative treatments, and that got treated with a atrazine, Cletho and Liberty, followed by Liberty. Pretty tough conditions, and I was getting a bit worried about this chemistry looking at this site. I would say it only probably provided about 70% control in pretty tough conditions. Going back later in the year, there's some shots there. I was pleased to see that it just goes to show how important that crop competition was. The ryegrass was present in lower numbers, but really didn't recover. And I would suggest it was a commercial result, but he got a much better result with he used a clethodim glyphosate mix in the TrueFlex around it, and he was really impressed with that. So from what he saw, he'll be waiting for the LR hybrid. But the whole paddock will be getting a pre-harvest glyphosate to manage seed set. So just highlighting, some of the challenges we will face taking it into the paddock. We've got some really good results in South Australia. They've been pretty excited. GM full stop is new to them over there, Liberty being a GM. And I'll just highlight a great result they got there on the right. Unfruited versus a mixture of 2 litres of Liberty plus atrazine, followed by 2 litres of Liberty 12 weeks after application. Another great trial that we were able to be involved in was with Pat Head, Cummins Ag on the Eyre Peninsula. His comments, very good control, 2 applications needed, 1 application very poor. 2 litres a hectare gave good control, no advantage going to 3. So on the label we have a rate range. apart from improved volunteer pulse control. So they found that favoured beans at the site were hardest to kill. There was also speculation as to how well glufosinate would work in our environment, but the initial results looked very encouraging. Getting back for a second application within 5 to 7 days will be a logistical issue for farmers. No crop effects noted. So a real good look at the systems there. And we down in Lake Bailey, so Western Districts, Victoria. They actually they had some trials last year. Just worked out, but they had a bit of a look at it last year and again this year. Their results: 14 days between applications due to wet weather, frost on the morning of the second application, but good control with Liberty plus Crucial, followed by Liberty. Then back in South Australia, York Peninsula, again the LR-LT hybrids and the applicable mixes. Crop safety was not an issue. The LT mix was one of the highest rated for control. Some larger ryegrass plants survived the Liberty treatment alone. All Liberty applications provide improved control over the standard practice, which is Russell or IBS, followed by clethodim. Will you use it and how? Most important for us will be controlling glyphosate and clethodim-resistant ryegrass. And again, we've got a decent population at that site. And a few of the mixes, there's the Liberty atrazine cletho mix, followed by Liberty, which will probably be quite a suitable mix on the LT hybrid. And just in the middle there's the Liberty only, Liberty followed by Liberty, and you can see we're missing a few. It is a contact herbicide. So why try LibertyLink? It's an additional tool for growers to manage resistant annual ryegrass, and it'll be accompanied by new high performance varieties coming through with podguard, and also to help preserve glyphosate and clethodim, and bring a group N chemistry into Australian canola programs. It is a GM system, the LibertyLink, and we will be rolling out a stewardship process, which we'll be sending an email out directly to everyone involved. So all growers and distributors are required to complete a LibertyLink stewardship training prior to the purchase of LibertyLink canola seed. Consultants and agronomists working with LibertyLink seed and or herbicide are recommended to also complete the stewardship training. So we'll keep you informed with that process. Now, just touching on podguard. So this is a key trait for us. It's sort of been bubbling away in the background for many years, but in a limited number of varieties. So, but now we're starting to get some high performance varieties to the market with podguard, and with the advent of the new LT canola, through that seedling breeding system, we're able to get podguard into a hybrid TT for the first time. So it's a shatter reduction trait, and I suppose we look at that end of maturity, and where we can get some losses with weather events and the mechanical operations of windrowing and harvest if the timing's not right. The GRDC has recently brought out a guide on windrowing, which you should be aware of, and I personally think it's pretty good. It's a way of getting some firm numbers for a pretty subjective situation. But as I suggested, with the current prices of canola and the yields look all right down here this year, that 5 to 10% by having to go in a little bit early can be chewing up, well, this year $100 to $200 a hectare. So it's really on people's minds this year. And you've got such a narrow window to get it right. And we all know that various situations have the variability. People relying on contractors and large programs, it's just challenging to get it all right. So what podguard offers, we're suggesting that growers can push their timing out to 90%, and that reduces the need to go prematurely. And it also lends itself to direct heading if growers want to look at that process. There's a picture on the bottom right there, just a TrueFlex demo we had down the road last year. That was all windrowed at 80% seed colour change. very correct timing. We're still seeing a level of difference in the volunteer growth under the windrow, podguard versus non-podguard. So the varieties, as I mentioned, our first LT hybrid, LT 4530P, dual tolerance to Liberty and Triazine. It's an early mid, medium height. It has a blackleg rating of R when treated with a levo. So our varieties are all treated with a levo for seedling blackleg. It's got a grouping of BF, and as I mentioned, it has podguard. So it's the first TT hybrid with podguard. We've done some further work at Longrenong Breeding Centre. They've developed a machine where they can mechanically compare the strength of harvested pods, and we can see the significant difference between the LT 4530P with podguard to some other competitive hybrid TTs without the trait. So that's essentially 20 pods going into a little bucket with some ball bearings, and it goes on a shaking cycle of 90 seconds. And those results are the number of unshattered pods after that time. So that's our Liberty hybrid, LT hybrid. Now we have our hybrid TTs, which have been a main staple of our variety offerings to the industry. We've got our early maturity 3510, which we've discontinued. Over the years, we've just found that 4510's versatility. There was really no beneficial yield difference in those early growing season environments, and 4510's got a great upside where the season allows for more yield. So that's discontinued 3510, maintaining 4510 into the market and productions. And we have a mid to late maturity T6010 hybrid, which will be second year into the market. First year this year, second year next year. And that's finding a good place for people with earlier sowing opportunities. So down this way into the first week of April, and for those longer season growing environments. And these hybrid TTs, all backed by our, the agency products, all backed by our My Seed package. Importantly, the Replace My Seed and Pay at Harvest. So Replace My Seed has been really handy for those growers transitioning from their own seed into a hybrid system. We do have some resources, and we've just got all the characteristics or important characteristics summarised on one page. We can make that available after. And you can all, I'm sure you all go to the NVT site and have a look at your local sites. And this is just a snapshot of New South Wales all combined. So this is the early TT from 16 to 20. You can see our 4510 and the new LT hybrid entered in there for the first time last year. And then our mid hybrid TTs. So just a snapshot where they're sitting on the table there with their competitors. We've also been involved in the phenology work that the DPI has been conducting over recent years, and again this year. So I find this really important work, and I hope the industry considers to invest in work like this. It's really important for growers to be able to maximise those early opportunities without creating too much risk in their program. So 2 sowing dates there, and just showing the relative maturity of some of our hybrids compared to other main industry hybrids. So we've got that work ongoing again at Wagga this year. I suppose it has to be applicable to your environment as well, which is not necessarily the case for Wagga when you're looking further north. So just touch on our TrueFlexes now. So we brought our first TrueFlex, which was 4022P, to the market in 2019. And these brought a state-of-the-art package to the market: podguard, good performance, and TrueFlex. So 3 really valuable traits for the growers. So 4022P, and this year or next year, we'll be planting commercially for the first time 4520P. So our older hybrids, 5520 and 3520, will be selling down this season, but we'll be continuing to produce for the market with the 2 new TrueFlex hybrids. So again, just looking at some snapshots of the NVTs. This is the early Roundup Ready for New South Wales combined. You can just see where the new TrueFlexes are sitting on the ladder there. So this is the early maturity trials, and then we go to the mid Roundup Ready trials, and you can see the versatility of the 45-20 yielding well in those early season environments with a great upside in yield. Just a quick look at the pipeline. This was a summary that we provided our trial partners this year, but just want to highlight the red circle there, this coded line. So we have a early mid hybrid TT in NVTs this year, which we hope will succeed 45-10, which has been a very popular hybrid. We also have a number of other varieties we're looking at to push through. So potentially a 55-20 replacement, so that mid-maturity TrueFlex with podguard. We'll be monitoring the performance of that. And we're continuing with our LT system and our LR system, which is first year NVT. And we also have various combinations of those traits. So with the LR, this is, as I mentioned, first year NVT. It's an early mid-maturity, medium. We expect it to be rated R for a Levo, BF blackleg group, and again with podguard. So we hope these hybrids will be transitioning to from our other Agura hybrids. That's our range guide. So we have a range guide available with pricing and the listing of the MySeed benefits, replace MySeed, pay at harvest, and the TrueFlex and podguard traits that we offer. So there is a seed. I get a lot of questions on the seed supply process with our agency products, and unfortunately, we are in an environment where we're having to allocate a limited amount of seed to a high demand market, and there's some steps that we have to go through. The MySeed platform that we utilise that to do our dispatches, and if we have to give bad news to people about not getting seed, we can do that earlier rather than later. So if there's any questions on that, please contact your ASM and we can make sure that we're completing all those steps. As of October the 15th, that's our current supply situation. So either fully allocated or on allocation, and again, communicating closely with your ASM in that department. There's some resources we have available, so both on the website, or if you can't find them, happy to shoot them through. But that concludes my talk. Thank you for listening. Is there any questions, please?
I guess I have a question, Warwick, with that 45-10 probably in particular. How far north has it been grown commercially so far? So some of our people are quite north. Off the top of your head, roughly how far north has that most commercial crop?
Actually, I had a question from Sally yesterday, and she said she had some interest around Moree. So there are, it is present in the NVT trials up around Ballata and Mulva, I think, were the sites. So they're probably the most northern sites I've looked at. And I think the 45-10 has performed reasonably well up there.
I think that'll be interesting for us to see then next year, probably, especially given the seed situation. But probably one other comment, we probably haven't had that much exposure to up here to the podguard trait, and just with the storms that have been floating around. I know yesterday, for those that are on Twitter, there was some some interesting photos going around just with some storms. I think it was, some of them were from WA. Phil, you shared one, but just showing the benefit, I guess, of the podguard trait when it comes to sort of the end of the season. And some stormy weather, so that was pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, it's a really valuable trait for us, and it really just hasn't gained traction to date because of it was really only in 55-20, which was a mid-maturity hybrid, and it was probably mid-pack performance. It did perform quite well in Victoria, but not so good relatively to the other Roundup Ready hybrids in New South Wales. So it's just sort of been ticking away in the background. But now we have it in those new TrueFlex lines, and now the new Liberty lines coming through. It's a lot more accessible, and growers don't have to forego yield potential to get that trait.
Yep. There's a question in the chat just from Phil. So the Liberty herbicide itself, when those as those varieties are coming through, there's a rate range on the label for Liberty. At what point would you use the 3 litres versus the 2 litre rate? And is it weed size or species dependent, or how do you make that decision?
Yeah, so the 3 litre rate is really only there's for 2 weeds. So for ryegrass, it's 2 litres to 3 litres sequentially. And then it's also has a 3 litre sequential rate for wild radish suppression. So weak on wild radish, that's where we need the atrazine. And when we get the LR hybrid, we'll be utilising glyphosate. That experience grower demo I showed you down the road, where I said was initially disappointing. We actually used 3 litres on the second application because larger weed size and the growing conditions were unfavourable. So it was dry, we were getting frosty mornings, and that larger weed size and heavy weed pressure. So did go to 3 litres. Looking back and probably learning more about it as we go along, probably would have been better off just sticking with 2 litres and putting a high water rate out. The grower was putting 90 litres out, which is normally an excellent water rate, but for a contact herbicide, probably think we might need to focus more on water volume and coverage rather than the 3 litre rate.
Excellent. And some of the other weeds, Warwick, that are on that label, other than like rye and radish, just off the top of your head?
So we do have a range of grasses, including barley grass, brome grass. You noticed down at this Elmer Park site, it was really good on wild oats. Weak on radish. It's generally quite good on legumes, apart from faba beans. Haven't looked at any Lontrel mixes yet, but that'll be something we look at going forward. And none like fumitree. Yeah, long list. There's 28 weeds in total. And look, if there's particular situations that people want to look at in their patch, really keen to get involved with you. We can source LT and LR hybrid seed for small plot work, and yeah, we'd love to see more work go out around the place.
Just one more question popped up. What is the most important consideration for the application timing of that second pass?
I suppose 7 days is ideal. I think the 7 to 14 day time frame was just purely put in there. If you couldn't make the 7, get it done in 14. We have some trial work that indicates from Bayer that once you go past that 14-day period to out to 21, the level of control drops off significantly. So that I think there was a group of 17 trials that I looked at, had an average of 93%, 93 to 100% control with the 2 litres applied at the correct timing and conditions within that 7 to 14 days. If that was pushed out to 21, that dropped back to 55%. So it has a big bearing on it, and it's certainly far easier to say than do, and probably have to go into the Liberty system with both eyes open.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, we might leave it there. I've just put a slide up with all of our contact details. So your local area sales managers, Sally covering basically southern and central Queensland, northern New South. You've got Dave Pollock covering central New South, and Curtis Target covering the southern region of New South Wales. I've also put Warwick's details up. He might shoot me for that, but first port of call would be your local area sales manager. But Warwick is there as our seeds agronomist specialist, myself as the technical services specialist, and Ed Lowe is our regional sales manager. I have just had a comment pop up in the chat Liberty had been owned by a different supplier with a cotton registration in the past. That's true. So Bayer actually owned the Liberty trait. We purchased various things off Bayer a few years ago now. So 3 years ago, we purchased their seeds business, so wheat and canola. We've also purchased Liberty herbicide. We've purchased Basta and a Levo seed treatment, which goes on to our canola, as well as Poncho Plus, which is an insecticidal seed treatment. But this comment says that they had good results on spring weeds with 120 to 140 litre water rates, and it seemed logical that the higher droplet survival in winter spraying would make 100 litre mixes fairly comparable. Awesome. Thank you for that comment, Mel. But yeah, if you do have any further questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch about whether it's canola or any other products or just situations that you're dealing with in the paddock. Please don't hesitate to give us a call, and we really appreciate you joining today. We will have recordings available, and we'll be sending an email out with all of those links to you later on. But with that, thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing from you one day soon.
Yeah, thank you very much for dialing in and for making time for us today. And thanks, Warwick, for presenting.